Start the clock.
Good afternoon. At the tone, time will be
Real time.
And finally, new rule, now that many Republicans have come forward in the last week to finally admit that, okay, you were right, Sarah Palin is a crazy person. They have to ask themselves, what else might I have been completely wrong about all these years? Now, in case you missed it, Palin made a speech in Iowa a couple of weeks ago that cryptologists are still working on. And which I have been holding off on discussing on the outside chance it might be brilliant in some other language. Let's look at a few moments, shall we, to see for ourselves what prompted conservatives to finally throw Sarah Palin under the bus.
He who was the one. Now, with tea time on the mind, and this is to forego a conclusion, right? It's to scare us off and convince us that a pantsuit can crush patriots. It's kind of Orwellian observing how that works, that rule of Saul Alinsky's, no doubt.
Boy, that really brings me back to the 80s when you'd get a chick back to your apartment to do coke and she'd do too much and start rambling and you'd think, boy, I have made a huge mistake here. Now, to be fair, Democrats make huge mistakes, too. Taking pictures of your dick comes to mind. But let's face it, this isn't a 50-50 thing. Democrats can be fuzzy thinkers, but Republicans will look you right in the eye and tell you that 2 + 2 equals Jesus. But not anymore with Sarah Palin. The pundits who always defended her have now officially had enough. It was as if the scales fell from their eyes and they were finally able to admit the emperor has no clues. They called her speech incoherent, a farce, unseemly, words that might have truly stung Sarah if she knew what they meant. For example, Matt Lewis, who previously had loved Palin so much he wrote an adoring book about her, penned a column titled, "You Betcha I Was Wrong About Sarah Palin," and said, quote, "Maybe her early critics saw some fundamental character flaw that escaped me." You think? I'm not saying Matt sticks with losers for a long time, but he wrote this on MySpace. But he's hardly alone. Bill O'Reilly compared her to a reality show. Sean Hannity asked, did the teleprompter go down? The Washington Examiner questioned whether she should be included in future Republican events. And Bill Cosby said, I wouldn't drug her with your drink. I made that last one. But hey, we're not here to gloat.
Oh, no.
We're just here to say, didn't that feel good to finally purge yourself of something that wasn't sitting well in your gut? It's like when you're sick and you make yourself throw up, you feel better afterwards. I only have one question for Republicans. What took you so long? The rest of us have been watching this dog eat grass for 7 years. But now that you know that you can do this, what about writing a column called, You Betcha I Was Wrong About Climate Change? Might feel good. Germany gets 74% of its electricity from renewables, and they don't live in the future. They're a real country. Turn left at Austria, it's right there. Look them up in a history book, they're always up to something. Or what about giving up on the idea of sending 12 million Mexicans back to Mexico? There aren't enough trains. Ask Germany. And as long as we're in a rethinking mood, you might... No, you know what might be a good one? Middle East invasions. Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria now, Iran, all these places you want to send heroic snipers. Turns out they don't like it. They're just not that into being sniped. And what about the great granddaddy of zombie lies, trickle-down economics? Can't we throw that one under the bus, too? It's never worked, and it never will work for a good reason. Because it's like having 3 dogs and giving a wiener to one of them and thinking he'll share it with the others. And finally, new rule, the Pennsylvania teenager who faces up to 2 years in jail for disrespecting this statue of Jesus must show us he's really got balls and try it with a statue of Muhammad. Oh, don't fucking start with me, because it's going to get worse right now. Actually, that's a trick question, because there are no statues of Muhammad, because if you made one, there'd be a fatwa and you'd wind up dead. Now, folks, I know, as difficult as it is to face this issue, it is important for us as Americans to remember what we stand for. Of all the iconic American images in our history, there's no picture that makes my heart swell with patriotism quite like this one. Because this kid is not going to get killed for this. He's not even going to jail. Yes, there's some local dumbass DA trying to throw the book at him, but come on, he's a kid. He's just doing what kids do, making Jesus blow them. USA! 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 It may not be in good taste. I certainly don't condone this type of behavior. Praying, I mean. But it speaks volumes about why liberal Western culture is not just different, it's better. President Obama keeps insisting that ISIS is not Islamic. Well, maybe they don't practice the Muslim faith the same way he does. But if vast numbers of Muslims across the world believe, and they do, that humans deserve to die for merely holding a different idea, or drawing a cartoon, or writing a book, or eloping with the wrong person, not only does the Muslim world have something in common with ISIS, it has too much in common with ISIS. There's so much talk. You can applaud, sure. There's so much talk about wiping out ISIS. You can't, not with bombs. You can only expose that something is a bad idea, like extended warranties. Cultures are different. It's okay to judge that rule of law isn't just different than theocracy. It's better. If you don't see that, you're either a religious fanatic or a masochist. But one thing you are certainly not is a liberal. To count yourself as a liberal, you have to stand up for liberal principles, free speech, separation of church and state. Freedom to practice any religion or no religion without the threat of violence. Respect for minorities, including homosexuals. Equality for women. It amazes me how here in America we go nuts over the tiniest violations of these values, while gross atrocities are ignored across the world. Jonah Hill yells, "Suck my dick, faggot," at the paparazzi, and an entire nation goes into Twitter outrage until he is forced to perform that most debasing of acts, the talk show apology tour. Meanwhile, in 10 countries, actually sucking a dick can get you stoned, and not in a good way. We hear a lot about the Republican war on women. It's not cool Rush Limbaugh called somebody a slut. Okay, but Saudi women can't vote or drive or hold a job or leave the house without a man. Overwhelming majorities in every Muslim country say a wife is always obliged to obey her husband. That all seems like a bigger issue than evangelical Christian bakeries refusing to make gay wedding cakes. 91% of Egyptian women have had their clitorises forcibly removed. 98% of Somalian women have. Ayan Hirsi Ali grew up in Somalia and is one of them. She was scheduled to speak at Yale last week, but the school's atheist organization, My People, complained that she, quote, did not represent the totality of the ex-Muslim experience. Meaning what? The women who like mutilation? You're atheists. You should be attacking religion, not siding with the people who hold women down and violate them, which apparently you will defend in the name of multiculturalism, and then lose your shit when someone refers to Chaz Bono by the wrong pronoun. Donald Sterling isn't allowed to own a team because he told his mistress not to post pictures with black guys. Okay, but if we're giving no quarter to intolerance, shouldn't we be starting with the mutilators and the honor killers? Or will that divert us from the real problem, that when Mel Gibson drinks, he calls women sugar tits?
Chelsea Clinton says she didn't get pregnant to make her mother seem more human. But come on, does she seriously expect us to believe she was having sexual intercourse while not thinking about her mother? Only a Clinton would create human life just to distract voters from Benghazi. I was born too, but not yesterday. How much do we really know about Fetal Clinton? Fetal Clinton never started a business, met a payroll, or created a single job. It just lies there, jobless and naked, kicking an American mother in the kidney. And when Fetal Clinton is born, naturally it's going to be someone else's job to clean up the mess. But it won't be the first Clinton to get DNA all over an intern. Can America really afford 2 more trimesters of Fetal Clinton? Call Fetal Clinton and tell it the American people deserve to finally get an answer to the question, where's the birth certificate?
And finally, New Rule conservatives have to admit they've lost the culture wars when they're reduced to demanding the right to not serve wedding cake to gay people. That's the biggest problem facing America, not climate change or terrorism or the wealth gap, but gay cake. It's not like gays are asking bakeries to make a giant penis cake that goes from soft to hard and squirts out buttercream. Which reminds me, the big party is tomorrow. Now, ever since Indiana Governor Mike Pence signed his Religious Freedom Restoration Act, he and like-minded conservatives have been trying to have it both ways. They hate discrimination, but they love the Bible. A book that commands you to discriminate. That's what it says. Gay is an abomination, and we must destroy it by denying it pastry. Of course, the root of this problem is that more than half of all Americans still believe the Bible is the actual or inspired Word of God. But now 55% also support gay marriage, which must be very confusing. On the one hand, clearly, God has spelled it out. He hates fags. But you like your gay neighbors, Rob and Larry. But the Bible tells you to kill them. Yes, it literally says kill them. What to do? Well, if you're Christian attorney Matt McLaughlin from nearby Orange County, you write a ballot initiative which calls for killing all the gay people in California because, to quote Mr. McLaughlin, better that offenders should die rather than that all of us should be killed by God's just wrath. Now, I know you're saying this guy's so far out on the fringe, but that's the scary thing. He's not. And this is what never gets discussed in these religious freedom issues. The reason fundamentalists are so stubbornly anti-gay is they truly believe that condoning homosexuality will bring on God's wrath. This is what Jerry Falwell used to preach. He said AIDS was God's punishment for a society that tolerates homosexuals, and that gays and lesbians helped 9/11 happen. John Hagee said God caused Hurricane Katrina to wipe out New Orleans because it had a gay pride parade the week before. Pat Robertson warned Orlando, home of Disney World, that if they went ahead with the gay-themed promotion, it'll bring about terrorist bombs, earthquakes, tornadoes, and possibly a meteor. Possibly a meteor. He's not a kook. Just 2 weeks ago, Bob Jones III, founding scion of Christian Bob Jones University, apologized for a comment he once made, which was, "It would not be a bad idea if gay people were stoned as the Bible commands." Take fundamentalists at their word. They literally believe this stuff. And if you believe that God wiped out Sodom and Gomorrah for being too gay, then yeah, he must be itching to hit West Hollywood. Now, is California really going to consider Mr. McLaughlin's gay-killing bill? Of course not. But as batshit as this asshole is, just imagine if there was a whole country of Matt McLaughlins. Well, there is. It's called Saudi Arabia. It's called Iran. It's called Pakistan. I could go on, but suffice it to say that in many Muslim countries, you wouldn't have to work hard at all to get signatures on your Kill All the Gays ballot initiative. In 10 such countries, it's already the law. Because they have crazy scripture too. Muhammad says of sodomy, kill the one who does it and the one to whom it is done. Especially him, because he probably likes it more. He didn't say that part. People say ISIS hijacked Islam. No, actually the opposite is true. Religions do have hijackers, but the hijackers are the moderates, and I thank atheist God for them. They're the ones who took a Sharpie to the Bible and redacted all the crazy parts until there was almost nothing left to read, like an email from Hillary Clinton. And now someone in Islam needs to do that with the Quran. You know, there's so much wrong with America these days. Take pride in the one thing that is legitimately better. We don't let fundamentalists rule our shit. What's the proof? Our gay battles are over cake. And even then, not once has one of these religious freedom laws been used to deny a gay person his wedding cake. It just doesn't happen. What happens is there's a lawsuit, it goes to court, and the judge always says, "Bitch, just make..." There you go. Every couple of weeks, we've been adding flip-worthy candidates to our Tweet 16 bracket. I've been following that. Time to add 2 more. From Michigan, say hello to former professional Santa Claus impersonator. I'm not making that up. And current amateur congressman, Kerry Benevolio. His constituents there on the 11th District are very excited about the prospect of a Kerry-less future. But he's got competition from New Jersey's 5th. That happens to be my hometown, where my sister still lives. And Congressman Scott Garrett, you are not liked by a lot of people in my old hood. I read up on you. You're probably going to win, but you are kind of a dick. So let's put these guys up on the bracket. The bracket is starting to fill up, so remember, if you want to use our magnifying glass to burn your pesky ant of a congressman, hit us up on social media, #FlipADistrict. Now, new rule, if you're searching the internet to find the video of Erin Andrews someone took through her hotel room peephole, then you're as big a pervert as the guy who took the video. Yes, someone illegally taped ESPN reporter Erin Andrews changing through the peephole in her hotel room door, which I thought only happened in Porky's movies. This raises a lot of troubling questions like, is there privacy in the internet age? What can be done to stop this kind of thing? And why hasn't someone sent me the link? And finally, new rule, in order to simplify things, the RNC must just tell us which Republicans aren't running for president. Yes, the field is more crowded at an earlier time than ever because each of these corporate ass lickers wants to sign up mega-rich donors like Sheldon Adelson before one of the other guys in the pack blows him first. So tonight, as a service to billionaires who want to know which one of these gems to write the check to, I've put together this helpful 2016 Billionaire Buyer's Guide. for the oligarch who wants to make an informed choice. So there we go. Let's count it down. The candidates according to their current standing in the polls, starting at the bottom with Rick Perry. On the upside, Rick wears glasses now, so I guess he's not stupid anymore. On the downside, he's an evangelical Texas shit-kicker with limited intellect, and when has that ever led us astray? In 8th place is Marco Rubio. His strengths include fundraising and reaching for a bottle of water without anyone noticing. But on the downside, most Americans think he's that kid Janet Reno sent back to Cuba. Next is Ted Cruz. Ted was born in Canada, but don't let that fool you. He's a real asshole. And a big fan of the Keystone oil pipeline because he also oozed down from Canada to Texas, where he grew up to be the scariest Hispanic to come out of that state since Javier Bardem in No Country for Old Men. On the upside, oh, there's no upside to Ted Cruz. He's what you'd get if Ayn Rand had half a sex change and moved to Waco. In 6th place is Rand Paul, who has some really good ideas, like reduced drug sentences and allowing ex-cons to vote, but also some crazy ones. He's like a Swiss Army knife, where half the blades are useful and half are Q-tips and AIDS needles. But what I really like about Rand Paul is he's a true maverick. While most guys with a toupee want it to look like real hair, he styles his real hair to make it look like a toupee. Mike Huckabee. You know, it's the darndest thing about Mike. Everyone says he's likable, but no one says they like him. Mike's a culture warrior who represents conservatives who are still pretty sore about Obama being black. Unfortunately for Mike, it looks like most of his base has moved on, and by that I mean they're dead. Dr. Ben Carson is the Republicans' black friend du jour, and although he's a celebrated, now retired brain surgeon, he believes that gay marriage caused the fall of the Roman Empire, that the Affordable Health Care Act is, quote, the worst thing that has happened to America since slavery, and that Obama may cancel the 2016 election and declare martial law. Ben, I know you don't practice anymore, but if you still have your brain tools, here's what I suggest. Lie down. Put a mirror over your head so you can see what you're doing and start cutting. Because you're an insane, paranoid liar who will say absolutely anything. Or as Fox News puts it, when can you start? Coming in at number 3 in the polls is New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. On the plus side, people say Christie's more authentic than the others. And they like him because he always goes with his gut. Bakeries like him for the same reason. And talk about determination. Which other candidate could have a doctor operate on his stomach and tie it off so that food could barely get in and still find a way to stay fat as a house? Yes, it's Chris Christie won, lap band, nothing. And don't think he won't do the same thing to you in the primaries. He will chew you up and not spit you out. At number 2, Jeb Bush, whose strength, of course, is that he's the smart Bush. Downside? Well, his brother left office with an approval rating of 22%. Whereas Bill Clinton went out with a 68% approval, so advantage Hillary there. In terms of brand loyalty, Hillary's like if your last card was a Camry, and Jeb is like if your last car was a clown shoot you out of a cannon. And the current #1 choice among likely Republican voters, a man who needs no introduction because he's been stalking us the last 8 years, the unbearable whiteness of being, Mitt Romney. Now, on the plus side, Mitt wants to be president, like your dog wants that half a Slim Jim you drop down inside the couch. On the downside, Mitt's speeches are so boring, Bill Cosby uses them to knock out aspiring actors. So good luck, billionaires. It's an embarrassment of riches. All right, that's our show. And finally, new rule. Someone has to explain to me why Republicans believe that not working and getting free money, you know, like the takers, is the worst, most corrupting thing that could ever happen to a person, except if you're rich. The very first thing our new Republican Congress tried to do was get rid of any tax on inherited wealth, which they call the death tax. Although really, what better time is there to pay a tax than when you're dead? Yeah, we used to understand that, and the estate tax used to be pretty high. But then President George W. Bush came along and worked tirelessly to make sure that rich, idle trust fund brats got every penny that was coming to them. I wonder where he got the idea to reward dumbasses who leech off their dad's success. Well, it is true, if there's one thing that really chaps the conservative ass, it's the idea of people getting money for nothing and chicks for free. Paul Ryan says, we have a culture of men not working. Generations of men not even thinking about working or learning the value and the culture of work. Yes, so true. Like, for example, this douchebag. This is the youngest heir to the Hilton hotel fortune, Paris Hilton's brother, Conrad Hughes Fuckface Hilton III. Who last year was on a flight from London when he, get this, tried to smoke pot and cigarettes up to 20 times in the bathroom, disabled the smoke detector, physically fought with the flight crew, and then told them, I could get you all fired in 5 minutes, I know your boss. And when told he was upsetting the other passengers, said, I will own fucking anyone on this flight, they are fucking peasants. And when the crew finally had to physically restrain him, he said, my father will pay this out, he's done it before. Kind of makes you think, why can't we book this kid on a Malaysian airline? And before you say, but Bill, every kid who inherits money doesn't become an entitled jerk, let me give you two names. Donald Trump, who once said, what I find so morally offensive about welfare dependency is it robs people of the chance to improve. Again, so true. Republicans are right. Not having to work and getting free money does mess people up. That's why they love to talk about work. The virtue of work, the right to work, work fair, the dignity that comes with work. In fact, there's only one thing conservatives believe in more than work, and that's the God-given right of rich people to leave all their money to their kids so they never have to work a day in their lives. I mean, think about it. Republicans are on board with taxing people's income, their investments, property, food, gas, booze, cigarettes, everything you buy, even your retirement. Those are all okay. But the one thing that must remain tax-free is when money falls from the sky and lands in the lap of fuckface Hilton. But, you know, if the tough love of cutting off free money for the poor is the right thing to do, how can we stand by and do any less for the Conrad Hiltons of the world? They've never known the dignity of work either. Shouldn't we be helping them by taxing inheritance at 100%? What about poor Kylie Jenner? When she turned 16, she got a $125,000 Mercedes and crashed it into some other motorist who didn't understand she was in a hurry. And here she is this week, a month after her father's deadly accident, texting while driving. There's got to be some way to get her off the road and into a minimum wage job at Hot Dog on a Stick. And then there's little Ethan Couch. He's the Texas teenager who killed 4 pedestrians while driving drunk and pled, I'm not kidding about this, a condition called affluenza. Yes, affluenza, which basically says he didn't know boundaries because his rich parents didn't give him any. And it worked. He got off. So ask your doctor if being rich is right for you. And finally, new rules, since it was my $1 million check to Obama in 2012 that turned around his lagging campaign and put America back on the path to awesome exceptionalism. Tonight, I would like to announce that the time has come for me to step forward and save Hillary Clinton's lagging campaign by digging down deep and forking over $1 million. Worth of advice. Sorry,
We'll come back to you on that.
I live in California. I need that money to pay my water bill. Now, I know many liberal Democrats these days are expecting Bernie Sanders to be their standard bearer now that he's ahead in New Hampshire, but I wouldn't have the couches in the Oval Office fitted for plastic slipcovers just yet. I mean, I love Bernie, but we must assume Hillary is going to be the nominee, and after witnessing the gruesome 100-car pileup that is the Republican field, I, for one, am not going to stand idly by and let Hillary blow this thing. And yes, the situation is dire. Her positives are in free fall, with only 37% of Americans now viewing Hillary favorably, and 57% say she's not trustworthy. If an election were held today, she'd lose key battleground states to Scott Walker, a man who looks like a drunk in a silent movie who's just been punched by mistake. Perhaps worst of all, one poll says she's now viewed negatively by white women with college degrees. That's like Obama losing John Legend. Hillary, I don't want to sound like Trump, but your campaign stinks and your numbers are terrible. And speaking of Trump, Hillary, you should be the one candidate who hits that blowhard as hard as he hits. Say something like, Mr. Trump, you accuse Megyn Kelly of being on the rag, but what's going on with your hormones when you start whining every time a woman asks you a tough question, you little bitch? And that's my first bit of advice. You gotta make the campaign more fun. This week you introduced a detailed plan to make college more affordable, as you've released detailed plans on immigration, climate change, taxes, whatever. Honey, that's stuff that's actually relevant to the job of being president of the United States. But this is America. Campaigns aren't for policy. Just say, I will be the best at college affordability. And enjoy it more. A prominent supporter recently called your campaign joyless. And it kind of is. Now, I know this presents a conundrum. How do you appear more joyful, but without that laugh? Yes, the laugh. The one that makes people think you're the Wicked Witch of the West Wing. You gotta get rid of that, and you gotta find a way to look like you're a spontaneous fun lover. See if Taylor Swift has room in her girl gang for you. Ride an inflatable penis with Miley Cyrus. Lick a donut with Ariana Grande. Pee in a bucket with Justin Bieber. Geez, girl, you invented bad blood. Start a Twitter war with Katy Perry and then delete your tweets. Okay. Next thing you have to do, I want you to announce your VP pick, and I want it to be Baltimore Slap Mom. That's right. Remember the woman during the Baltimore riots this year who slapped her son because he was throwing bricks at the cops? She is your ticket to the White House. Liberals love her because she's a strong single mom, and conservatives love her because she beats the crap out of unarmed black teenagers. And finally, Hillary, your ace in the hole to get America back on your side is your husband, Bill Clinton. He has to have an affair. Or at least you have to find a way to publicize one of the ones he's probably already having. I say this because the years when you owned Most Admired Woman in America were the years when he was doing with anything that had shoulder-length hair and moved slower than he did. You can get the magic back, but Bill has to humiliate you, if at all possible, with Rebel Wilson on the Jumbotron at a Cubs game while you're throwing out the first pitch. We could also make this work with Jonah Hill, but nah. All right, that's... And finally, new rule: conservatives who constantly whine that Christianity is under attack from liberals have to explain why there are over 300,000 churches in the U.S., but only 400 Whole Foods. Clearly, your side is winning. Now, I understand it. Christians love to feel persecuted. It's part of their origin story. But we're a long way from them getting eaten by lions in the Colosseum. 70% of the country is Christian, not to mention every president we've ever had. So please tell me, in what universe do the following statements make sense? Mike Huckabee says we are moving rapidly toward the criminalization of Christianity. Ted Cruz says there's no room for Christians in today's Democratic Party. What? 80% of Democrats in Congress are Christian, and 78% of Democratic governors. You can look this shit up, you know. Ted also said there is a liberal fascism that is going after Christian believers. Going after? Fascism? I don't even believe in Christ, but for Christ's sake. Martyr much? Bill O'Reilly says if you're a Christian or a white man in the USA, it's open season on you. Yes, that explains all those recent videos of police shooting unarmed white clergymen. Rick Santorum says the treatment of Christians in America is so bad, we should keep in mind Nazi Germany, where you go from Christians, Jews obviously, but also Christians being not just persecuted, but put to death. Again, 70% of America is Christian. Who's going to put them to death? The Hindus? This idea that everybody on the left is plotting against Christianity and wants to wipe out religion is offensive to me, because I'm the only media figure with a show week in and week out that says that. And I'll be damned if the credit's going to go to the entire left when I'm doing all the heavy lifting. Actually, there are two others who have been my allies in this. Because that's the rule in America. You can mock religion if you're a cartoon dog or a child in a cartoon. But when Jeb Bush says, how strange in our own time to hear Christianity spoken of as some sort of backward and oppressive force, who else is talking about it that way? Is it Nancy Pelosi? No. Harry Reid? No. Obama? He says he wakes up to scripture on his BlackBerry. Obama does every show on TV except this one because he can't even be seen with an atheist. I gave him $1 million. He treats me like I lent him $1 million. So who are we talking about? Hillary? No. Bill? Biden? Al Gore? Al Franken? Elizabeth Warren? Jesse Jackson? Who? Nobody. That's who. Sean Hannity says the liberal media's war against religion is alive and well. Okay, so it's more of the media thing, like my friend Ariana from the liberal Huffington Post, because she's written 3 books about faith. I know, because we argue about it after sex. Is it the liberal gang at MSNBC? Because I've never heard any of them say anything anti-religion. One of them is a reverend. One of them attacks me when I attack religion. Is it the late night guys? Because I never hear any of them do it either. Is it Ellen or Rosie or Chelsea? We know it's not Oprah. Michael Moore, he's the liberal Republicans hate the most. No, he's a Catholic. This guy's so Catholic, he teaches Sunday school on Sunday. In the morning, when normal people are just getting in from an after party. I really want to know, where is religion belittled in the liberal world? The New York Times editorial page? No. The Times op-ed page? No. Any newspapers, any page? No. Newsweek and Time? Huh? They put Jesus on the cover more often than Cat Fancy puts a cat. Are we talking about athletes? If they so much as fart on the field, they point to the sky and give God credit. Football players have prayer circles after the game, and only half of them have the excuse of brain damage. So who? I'm getting mad like you. It's catching. Maybe they mean counterculture types, like devilish musicians. Really? Have you ever watched an award show? Every speech is, I want to thank Jesus, without whom I never would have written face down, ass up.